Greetings. Today I bring you the Waterloo Campaign, Day 1, June 16th. Now the 4 campaign maps take up a lot of space, but if you just play June 16th, you can make it with the 2 southern maps, which still take up a lot of space, but which I actually have room for in my dining room, which I was able to set up and use as a studio. One thing I like to do with the British Army to make it feel different, because Pub Battles focuses on command, and the British Army command was very different. Pretty much Wellington ran everything. It was like one big corps. So what I do is I put all the leader chits in the cup. And then whenever I pull a British chit from the cup, Wellington has the option of whether or not he wants to move right then. So what about the other British commanders? Well, they still provide combat command. You can still use them to have them within range to attack with your British units. Also, I have my leaders in combat rule, which is purely something I added for color. I like the narrative vibe it gives. And the way that works is that you can place your HQ on top of a unit, and then it does 2 things. The first thing is if the unit is militia or regular, it acts as 1 grade better. So militia acts as line, line acts as elite. The second thing it does is if the opponent ever rolls 3 hits, then the leader absorbs 1 hit and is removed as wounded or killed. Like I said, it just adds narrative color. It's fun. And when you have the tiny British Army, it might help simulate how the British didn't fold up and run when they're faced with the overwhelming French forces, but also explains the large number of British officer casualties. I believe all, maybe most of all, but all of the, besides Wellington, all of the British commanders represented by HQs were either killed or wounded at the Battle of Waterloo. Alright, let's take a look at the maps.
And here we have the beginning British Army. You've got the main force coming down the road, begins in the game. You've got Perponker down here at Quatre Bras. And then on turn 4, this column enters. And then at the end of the day, on turn 8, this column and this column enter from the west and the north. The final column comes in on the 17th, that's tomorrow, in the morning. Now the Prussians, as you might expect, are handling everything in good order. On turn 1, First Corps is defending all the approaches. On turn 2, Second Corps with Perch and Blucher arrive. And then on turn 3, Third Corps with Thielmann arrives. And finally, Fourth Corps and Bülow arrive on the 17th. The Prussian reinforcements come down this road. And here we have the massive French army. You have 4 cavalry corps, the Guard, and 5 infantry corps. The French can enter in road column on turn 1. They can enter on as many roads as they want, but each road must be at least a mile from any other road. Any command may wait until turn 2 and enter in line. Alright, let's get started.
Here I've got my divider set to 1 foot move. First up is Lobau's 6th Corps, which comes on right here. The artillery comes out of column, and the rest of his corps is stretched out on the minor road behind. Next, the main French column comes up, and here we can imagine Ney has come up with Jacquinot's Lancers, followed by the rest of Durland's 1st Corps. And Zieten's artillery opens up on the French cav, to little effect. And advancing on parallel lines, the French cavalry come on to the west. Gerard's corps comes on and is immediately stopped by Zieten's cav, and the cav is driven back. And finally, the British column reaches Quatre Bras. And now in the mid-morning, seeing dust clouds to the west, Wellington sets his artillery on the ridge. You see that Picton can race up to here and come out of column, and he brings up a few more smaller formations. And Lobau deploys behind his cavalry screen, leaving a route for them to fall back, if need be. And Zieten's artillery continues the bombardment, again with little effect. And Durland sends his cavalry out to the right and begins forming up in front of the British. And Riley's 2nd Corps begins entering. And Gerard's 4th Corps moves up. They are west of Zieten's Prussians at Ligny. And the French light cavalry begins screening moves west of the British. And in the mid-morning, Perch and Blucher finally arrive. Now I could have brought them in down here and really caused some problems, but when they last heard, all the action in the Prussians was happening here, So they're rushing up here. Now next turn when 3rd Corps comes on, we'll see where they go. Alright, it's late morning and the first thing that happens is Exelman's 2nd Corps occupies the main road. And Durland's Corps attacks. And if that's not enough, Riley's 2nd Corps begins forming up right behind. Now Wellington has to decide if he wants to hold here. The most sensible thing to do would be just to fall back. But if he does that, then he doesn't link up with the Prussians. The French can concentrate on the Prussians, knock them out of the war, or at least get them to the point where they don't want to fight till everyone comes in from the east. And then Wellington will be holed up on the coast. It may not even last there. If the Prussians are out, the French will siege. So in the greater scheme of things, he has to hold here. He's got to try. He's hoping for reinforcement soon. He'd like to link up with the Prussians, but it's just not that easy. And then the Prussian 2nd Corps column comes racing up the main road, moving towards the dust clouds they see to the west. And meanwhile, Zieten's here going, guys, I got a situation going here. Now von Thielmann's 3rd Corps is at a figurative and literal crossroads. Now when I have guys coming on in column, I don't draw each corps separately. When 2nd Corps was drawn, they're the head of the column. Everyone else is going to come in behind them. But what I do is if they're going to do anything but follow the line in front, they can't do that till they're drawn. But of course they can stop. So they've stopped here because I want them to go down this way. But they can't do that till next turn. Thus simulating some discussion going on. Do we need them all up here? Do we need them down here? They're talking about it now. They've got horsemen racing back and forth. Vendôme and lead elements of the French 3rd Corps make it on the map. And Kellerman's chasseurs à cheval arrive and come out of column. And as I said, the rest of the column, basically Milhaud's 4th Corps, continues up the map. French cavalry rides around to the right. The screen gone, the French artillery opens up on the Prussian artillery. With devastating accuracy, they drive them behind the hill. And Lobau's corps continues demonstrating in front of the Prussians. The rest of his army arriving, Zieten begins concentrating his corps. The early day, tense, stretched out part of his day is completed. Gerard's 4th Corps begins concentrating at the major road. The last elements of his corps make it onto the map. Peill's cavalry begins moving around the British position. Late morning combat here at Quatre Bras. Picton's men. And no one's left in control of the hill. Perponkert defending in the chateau. And the British still hold south of Quatre Bras. And more British forces arrive. But will it be in time? And Wellington sets up his defense, but he may need to fall back. He can't hold off the whole French army. And Riley tries where Durland failed. And Vendôme's 3rd Corps enters the map. Blucher and Perch form up behind their cavalry screen. And Thielmann's 3rd Corps places its scout cavalry screen as they arrive, adding pressure to the French right.
On taxi, Olain Pohjoilani. My camera cut off the map south of Ligny.
Lobau holds his position as Gerard prepares to hold. And Durland unpacks 1st Corps' bags, pulls his units back to recover. Exelman charges the British line, and with Ney's assistance, Kellerman's heavy cuirassiers charge the British line, as the rest of the cavalry forms up behind them. And now we have midday combat. Start with Riley's drive, south of Quatre Bras. At some cost, to clear the British from a hill. And a heavy cav. Artillery fires first. Tearing some holes in the cavalry's line, but they keep pressing. The artillery is pulled to safety, and the guarding infantry fall back. And here the Brunswickers, with the Prince of Orange, face off against more French cuirassiers. And with 3 hits, the Prince of Orange falls in battle. And the Brunswickers fall back. And the cavalry battle at the head of the British column. The French-Dutch cavalry is driven back and throws the front of the line into confusion. And now it's mid-afternoon. Wellington realizes the center cannot hold. He has to leave. But can he get out with his army intact? And he curses the dilatory Prussians. But of course, the Prussians have their hands full. And Blucher, with Birch in the 2nd Corps, attack. And Durlan rebuilds what he can of his troops. And Zieten condenses his line as he gets ready to put some hurt on the Frenchies. The French cuirassiers catch their breath. And then Lobau readies his troops. And the British sound the word to pull back. And the British right flank column begins pulling back. The shattered Dutch cavalry tries to hold the French cavalry in check. And the rest of the British line begins falling back. And Gerard receives the assault as his artillery fires on the Prussian cavalry screen, driving them off. And Thielmann prepares to launch his assault. And Riley prepares to pursue the British. And the French cavalry prepares to pounce. Their 1st Corps, the 2nd Corps, and the 4th Corps. And now it becomes a little more apparent why Wellington did not want to get sucked into a battle that wasn't where he wanted to fight. Here on the western edge, the Dutch cavalry, and they are wiped out. And here in the center, all the pursued British troops. As is so often the case, the first to fly pays a heavy price. The French cavalry run down the retreating British troops. And the Prussian relief. Gerard is holding. He's thrown back the Prussians. But for how long will this hold? And now it's late afternoon, getting on towards dinner time. Riley's corps is digging the stragglers out of the swamp. And the rest of his troops move forward. Gerard's artillery opens up on the Prussians, who go falling back. And the rest of his troops hold. Prussian 2nd Corps unpacks bags and recovers. And Von Damme continues up the center road. No reason to come out of column and deploy as long as Wellington's on the run. And Napoleon and the Guard begin entering. And the French 4th Corps cavalry press on. And the French cuirassiers just catch up with the lead elements of the retreating British. And Lobau begins falling back, feigning weakness. And Exelmann's cavalry helps out the cuirassiers. And Exelmann continues to pursue. And Durlan's troops reorganize and begin moving forward. The Prussian artillery opens up on the French artillery, driving it off the hill. And then Zieten drives forward. The British flanking column escapes off the map. And Wellington realizes he can't retreat with his infantry facing a swarm of French cavalry. And Thielmann's 3rd Corps marches north. Combat with the last of the British, although this is mostly just surrendering. Wellington has been captured and surrenders the British. Everyone knows Napoleon can't be beat. Zieten's corps attacking the French. And more French troops are lost. Though at this point, the Prussians have lost 50% of their cavalry. And now in the early evening, the Prussians know they can't take on Napoleon's whole army, but they can retreat in good order. And now I'm going to end my video because I can't keep hogging the dining room table. But in this opening battle today, the British are completely pantsed, and the Prussians will be lucky that nighttime is almost here and they'll be able to simply leave the battle. Napoleon's objective has been realized. The Prussians have fallen back, deciding to wait for the massive Russian and Austrian army that's on its way. And the British have suffered, arguably, the worst setback in Napoleonic Wars for their side. Good game? Thanks for the ride.